Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off our series today with a focus on nonverbal communication components. This first slide is titled, A Detailed Exploration of Nonverbal Communication Components, and it also highlights Decoding the Silent Language. Over the next few slides, we'll dive into how nonverbal cues play a crucial role in our interactions, often conveying more than words can say. We'll look at different aspects like gestures, facial expressions, posture, and more. So let's get started and unlock the secrets behind this silent, yet powerful language. Beyond words, nonverbal communication plays a crucial role in how we connect with others. It can actually contradict what we're saying verbally, adding a layer of meaning or sometimes causing confusion. It also helps regulate interactions, like when we use gestures or eye contact to signal we want to speak or listen. Additionally, nonverbal cues are powerful in transmitting emotions and attitudes, often conveying more than words ever could. Basically, nonverbal communication is all about sending and receiving messages without using spoken or written words. It's a subtle but impactful part of how we communicate every day. Research by Albert Mehrabian shows that up to 93% of how effectively we communicate depends on these nonverbal cues. That's the essence of the 93% rule. Most of our messages' impact comes from body language, facial expressions, tone, and other nonverbal signals. Understanding this really highlights just how important nonverbal communication is in our overall interactions and in reinforcing our messages. Let's explore the 8 pillars of nonverbal communication, which are essential for understanding how we convey messages beyond words. First, we have appearance, which includes how we dress and present ourselves. It sets the first impression and influences how others perceive us. Then, artifacts refer to personal items like jewelry or accessories that can also communicate information about our personality or status. Smell and olfactics involve the use of scent, sometimes subtle, sometimes more noticeable, and how smell can impact social interactions. Moving on, eye behavior and oculesics focus on how our eyes communicate emotions and intentions. Eye contact, blinking, and gaze can all reveal confidence or discomfort. Time usage, or chronemics, is about how we manage and interpret time. Being punctual or delayed can send messages about respect or interest. Voice qualities, or paralanguage, include tone, pitch, volume, and pace. These vocal cues significantly influence how our spoken words are received. Touch, or haptics, is another powerful pillar. Think about handshakes or a reassuring pat, and it can convey warmth, support, or authority. Space and distance, known as proxemics, relate to how we use personal space to establish comfort or dominance. Finally, body movement, or kinesics, covers gestures, posture, and overall body language. These nonverbal cues often speak louder than words and are crucial in interpreting true feelings. All of these pillars work together to create a comprehensive picture of nonverbal communication. They are interconnected, and understanding them helps us become more effective and empathetic communicators in every interaction. Let's talk about some key aspects of body language and what they can tell us. First, there's posture. An open posture usually signals interest, engagement, and openness, while a closed posture might indicate defensiveness or discomfort. Paying attention to these cues can really help us understand how someone is feeling during a conversation. Next, we have illustrators, which are gestures that go along with what we're saying, like pointing to emphasize a point or using hand movements to clarify our message. These gestures add emphasis and help convey our message more effectively. Then there are emblems, which are specific gestures with particular meanings, such as giving a thumbs up to show approval or agreement. These are culturally understood signals that can communicate a message without words. All of these nonverbal cues fall under the umbrella of kinesics, which is the interpretation of body motion communication. Think facial expressions, gestures, and posture. When we interpret kinesics accurately, we gain a deeper understanding of what someone is truly conveying beyond their words. So remember, the body really does speak. Paying attention to these cues can improve our communication and help us connect more meaningfully with others. let's dive into kinesics, specifically body language and gestures. First, we have affect displays, which are body movements that reveal our emotional states. These are often subconscious, like a smile when you're happy or frowning when you're upset. Next, we have adapters. These are unconscious behaviors, like clicking a pen or tapping your feet, that often indicate stress, boredom, or discomfort. Recognizing these can give us insight into how someone is truly feeling internally. Moving on, regulators are cues we use to control the flow of a conversation. For example, nodding encourages the speaker to keep going, while raising a hand might be a way to signal that you want to speak or that you disagree. Then, there are illustrators, which are gestures that help visualize what we're saying, like spreading our hands to show the size of something or to emphasize a point. These make our speech more engaging and help clarify our message. Finally, emblems are gestures that have a direct verbal translation. Think about giving a thumbs up to mean good or waving your hand to say hello. These are culturally specific, but serve as a quick, nonverbal way to communicate clear messages. Now, according to Ekman and Friesen, gestures can be classified into these categories, helping us understand their functions and meanings in different contexts. All of these elements of body language are crucial because they support and enhance our verbal communication, making our messages more complete and authentic. Now, let's take a closer look at facial expressions, specifically the microexpressions. These are fleeting involuntary facial movements that last just a fraction of a second, about 1/25 of a second to be exact. Despite their brief duration, they can reveal a person's true emotions, often before they have a chance to consciously hide or mask them. Paul Ekman's groundbreaking research identified 7 universal microexpressions that are recognized across all cultures. These include emotions like happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, contempt, and surprise. What's fascinating is that these expressions are part of a universal emotional language, meaning, no matter where someone is from, these facial cues are consistent. Understanding these microexpressions is incredibly valuable, especially in fields like psychology, law enforcement, or even everyday communication. They help us see beyond words and detect genuine feelings that might otherwise be concealed. This ties into our overall theme of reading nonverbal cues and understanding human emotion on a deeper level. Let's talk about haptics, which is all about the power of touch. Touch plays a vital role in how we communicate and connect with others. For example, when we show love or intimacy, such as kissing or holding hands, we're expressing emotional attachment and deepening our bonds. In friendships, a simple hug can convey warmth and a sense of closeness, helping us express feelings of affection and camaraderie. When it comes to social or polite interactions, touch often takes the form of ritualistic gestures like handshakes or a pat on the shoulder. These actions help us acknowledge others and show respect in a socially acceptable way. Then there are more functional or professional touches, which are usually task-oriented. Think of a doctor examining a patient or a handshake during a formal meeting. They serve specific purposes rather than emotional connection. Overall, haptics is essential because it's a primary way we establish trust and build relationships. Touch helps us communicate emotions, intentions, and social cues beyond words, making it a powerful tool for connection in our daily lives. Now, let's take a closer look at the different types of touch and what they signify. Starting with sexual or arousal touch, this involves physical attraction and intimacy. It's the kind of touch that often indicates romantic or sexual interest. Moving on, love or intimacy touch reveals deep emotional attachment, like holding hands or sharing a full embrace. These gestures communicate closeness and affection on a profound level. Next, we have friendship or warmth touch, which expresses liking and camaraderie. Think of a pat on the back or a side hug, simple gestures that show you enjoy someone's company without romantic implications. Then there's social or polite touch, which is more about ritualistic interaction acknowledgement, like handshakes or a friendly nod, polite gestures that maintain social norms. Finally, functional or professional touch is more impersonal and task-oriented. Examples include a doctor's exam or a tailor measuring a client. touches that serve a specific purpose without emotional involvement. Haptics, or the power of touch, plays a crucial role in how we communicate and build relationships. These categories help us understand the intentions behind different types of touch, and connecting this to the larger theme of nonverbal communication, it's clear that touch is a powerful and nuanced form of connection. Let's talk about paralanguage, because it's often what people notice even more than our words. It's not just what you say, but how you say it. First, silence can actually speak volumes. A pause can show respect, give someone time to think, or even signal disagreement without saying a word. It's a powerful tool when used intentionally. Next, we have vocal segregates. Think of those fillers like or like. While they might seem insignificant, overusing them can actually make you appear less confident or competent. So being aware of those little sounds can help you come across more polished. Then there's your rate of speech. Speaking quickly can suggest excitement or maybe nervousness, while slowing down often indicates confidence or thoughtfulness. Pay attention to your pace during conversations. Volume is another key component. Louder speech can command attention or convey authority, but if it's too loud, it might seem aggressive. Conversely, speaking softly can seem shy or unsure, so adjusting volume appropriately is essential. Pitch, or the highness and lowness of your voice, also communicates meaning. A high pitch might reveal nervousness or stress, whereas a lower pitch often signals confidence or authority. Finally, tone, the emotional quality behind your voice, can totally change how your message is received. A sarcastic tone, for example, can undermine sincerity, while a warm tone can foster connection. All these elements, silence, fillers, rate, volume, pitch, and tone, are what we call vocalics. They shape how our message is perceived, often more than the words themselves. So mastering paralanguage is key to effective communication. Let's talk about paralanguage, also known as vocalics, which plays a crucial role in how we communicate beyond words. First, consider sounds like or like. These are filler sounds that fill silence. While they might seem insignificant, overusing them can actually make us seem less credible or confident. Next, there's vocal fillers, which are these small verbal pauses or sounds that we insert into speech. They can happen naturally, but too many can distract your audience or make you seem unsure. Moving on, the speed of our speech, our rate or tempo, can tell a lot. Speaking quickly might show excitement or nervousness, while slowing down can emphasize seriousness or importance. So, adjusting your pace can really help convey the right message. Then there's loudness or volume. When we speak loudly, it can express confidence, anger, or intensity. Conversely, whispering might suggest secrecy or intimacy, drawing your audience in closer. Finally, pitch and tone. These are about the highness or lowness of your voice. Sarcasm, for example, often relies heavily on tone to reverse or change the literal meaning of words. Paying attention to these vocal cues can really deepen your communication and help you connect more effectively with your audience. Let's take a closer look at chronemics, time perception. In many cultures, punctuality is quite relaxed, meaning that being exactly on time isn't always the priority. Interruptions are generally accepted, and relationships tend to take precedence over strict deadlines. This reflects a more flexible approach to time, where multitasking and social interactions are often prioritized over sticking to a schedule. In these cultures, time is seen as fluid and adaptable, which can be very different from what you might be used to. Interestingly, even though relationships are more important, punctuality can still be a sign of respect. However, schedules and deadlines are often considered sacred. People still value them deeply, but they might be approached with a more relaxed attitude. The key here is focusing on one task at a time when needed, but also understanding that time is perceived as linear, segmented, and tangible, like the saying, "Time is money," suggests. For example, cultures in Latin America, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean tend to follow a polychronic or P-time approach, which emphasizes flexibility and relationships. On the other hand, cultures like the USA, Germany, and Northern Europe often follow a monochronic or M-time approach, where punctuality, schedules, and deadlines are highly prioritized. Understanding these differences in time perception is crucial as we navigate cross-cultural interactions, and it highlights how our cultural backgrounds shape our approach to time and priorities in both personal and professional settings. Let's talk about chronemics and how different cultures perceive and handle time. In many cultures, plans are quite flexible and can be changed easily, reflecting a more fluid approach to scheduling. Multitasking is also common, as people often juggle several activities at once, which contrasts with the more linear view of time. Relationships tend to take precedence over strict schedules, emphasizing personal connections over punctuality. Time itself is seen as flexible and fluid, allowing for adjustments and spontaneity. When it comes to individual tasks, however, there's often a focus on doing one thing at a time to ensure quality. Punctuality and adherence to schedules are valued differently depending on the culture, but generally, the idea that time is money reflects a more linear and tangible perception of time. Think of it as segmented and measurable. In regions like Latin America, the Middle East, and Southern Europe, you'll find a tendency toward what's called polychronic time. This means people often view time as more fluid, and multitasking is normal. Conversely, North America and Northern Europe tend to favor monochronic time, where time is seen as linear, one task at a time, and punctuality is highly valued. Understanding these differences helps us navigate cross-cultural interactions more effectively, especially as part of our broader discussion on intercultural communication. Now, let's talk about proxemics and the concept of spatial zones. These zones are essentially how we naturally space ourselves when we interact with others. Edward T. Hall, a key figure in this field, identified 4 main zones of interpersonal distance. First, there's the public zone, which is anything over 12 feet. This is typically used for speeches or when public figures are addressing an audience. It creates a sense of formality and allows for clear visibility. Next, we have the social zone, which ranges from about 4 to 12 feet. This is common in professional or social interactions, like in an office setting or during casual conversations among colleagues. It's a comfortable distance for exchanging information without being too personal. Then there's the personal zone, which extends from about 1.5 to 4 feet. Think of this as the arm's length distance, ideal for conversations with friends or family members. It allows for a more intimate and personal connection while still maintaining some personal space. Finally, there's the intimate zone, which is less than 1.5 feet. This zone is reserved for our closest relationships, family members, romantic partners, or very close friends. It involves a high level of sensory input, like touch and close proximity, which helps us feel connected. Understanding these zones is really important because they influence how we communicate nonverbally and how others perceive our comfort and intentions. Recognizing these spatial preferences helps us navigate interactions more effectively and respectfully, especially in diverse cultural contexts. Let's take a closer look at Hall's distance zones, which are fundamental to understanding proxemics. Edward T. Hall identified 4 distinct zones of interpersonal distance that help explain how we communicate nonverbally through spatial behavior. Starting with the intimate zone, which ranges from 0 to 18 inches. This space is reserved for very close relationships like hugging, whispering, or interactions with close family and partners. It's a space where trust and emotional connection are most evident. Next is the personal zone, extending from about 1.5 to 4 feet. This is the distance we typically maintain when talking with close friends and family members, comfortable, yet not as physically close as intimate space. Moving outward, we have the social zone, which spans from roughly 4 to 12 feet. This is the typical distance for interactions with acquaintances, colleagues, or during social gatherings. Think of a casual conversation at a party or a meeting. Finally, the public zone covers anything beyond 12 to 25 feet, often used during public speaking, lectures, or when encountering strangers. This distance helps establish a sense of formality and allows for broader communication to larger audiences. Understanding these zones helps us navigate social interactions more effectively, respecting personal boundaries and improving communication. Recognizing where people naturally position themselves can tell us a lot about their comfort level and the nature of the relationship. Now, let's explore some examples of proxemics and territoriality. Think about park benches, beaches, or even seats on public transport. These are open to anyone, and in a way, no one owns them individually. They are part of what we call public territory, where the space is accessible to everyone, but we might still feel a sense of familiarity or temporary ownership when we occupy them. Moving on, there's what we call the secondary territory. This includes your usual seat in a classroom, a table you often sit at in a cafe, or your workspace. These spaces aren't exclusively yours, but they tend to be associated with you, and you might feel a degree of ownership or comfort there. Finally, the primary territory is more personal and private, like your bedroom, your personal workspace, or your car. These are your exclusive domains, central to your daily life, and you usually guard them carefully from intruders. Understanding these distinctions helps us see how people use space to signal ownership, comfort, and social boundaries, which ties directly into the broader themes of proxemics and human interaction. Let's talk about oculesics, which is essentially the study of eye behavior. This includes things like eye contact, staring, and even pupil dilation. Now, one important aspect to consider is cultural variance. For example, in Western cultures, making direct eye contact is often seen as a sign of respect and engagement. But in many Eastern cultures, it can be considered rude or intrusive. So it's important to be aware of these differences to avoid misunderstandings. Next, establishing dominance through eye behavior can also be significant. Prolonged staring, for instance, can sometimes be interpreted as aggressive or confrontational. So, it's all about reading the context and the other person's cues. Another key point is signaling interest. When someone's pupils dilate, it can often indicate attraction or strong interest. It's fascinating how such subtle cues can reveal what someone is truly feeling. Lastly, oculesics helps us regulate interactions. For example, we might use eye behavior to signal when it's our turn to speak or when we want the other person to continue listening. All these elements, eye contact, staring, pupil dilation, really highlight how our eyes serve as the windows to the soul, giving us a deeper understanding of unspoken communication. Let's talk about oculesics, or what we might call the eyes have it. You might notice that when we're processing complex thoughts, we often look away or gaze elsewhere. This gaze aversion actually helps us reduce distraction and allows us to focus better. Moving on to cognitive function, our eyes can reveal a lot about how we're feeling. They can show happiness, fear, or sadness, sometimes even more honestly than what we say out loud. This makes eye contact a powerful tool for expressing emotion without words. And when we're communicating, watching others' reactions helps us gauge if they understand or agree with what we're saying. It's like reading their nonverbal cues to see if we're connecting effectively. We also use eye contact to monitor feedback during conversations. For example, we signal when we want someone else to speak or when we want to hold the floor. So, in essence, the eyes are a vital part of regulating the flow of communication, letting us control who speaks and when. All of these aspects tie back to the overall theme that nonverbal cues, especially eye behavior, are key to understanding and managing our interactions. Olfactics, or the sense of smell, plays a fascinating role in communication. It's actually one of the most primitive senses we have, deeply connected to memory. When we talk about scent and meaning, we're referring to how different smells can evoke powerful emotional responses and memories almost instantly. For example, a certain aroma might remind someone of a loved one or a special place, making scent a powerful trigger for emotions. This connection is why scent is so effective in marketing and personal interactions. In a store, environmental scents like baking cookies or fresh coffee aren't just pleasant. they're intentionally used to create a welcoming atmosphere. This can influence how consumers feel and behave, encouraging them to stay longer or make a purchase. On a personal level, our own scent, whether through perfume, hygiene, or natural pheromones, affects attraction and how others perceive us. It can signal status or health, subtly influencing social interactions. So, when we communicate using scent, we tap into these deep-rooted associations and emotional responses. It's a powerful, often subconscious form of communication that can reinforce messages or shape perceptions in ways words alone cannot. Let's start by exploring how scent marketing works in our environment. For example, you've probably noticed that supermarkets often fill the air with the smell of baking bread. That's no accident. It's a deliberate strategy to influence consumer behavior, making shoppers feel more comfortable and encouraging them to buy more. Moving on to attraction, our sense of smell plays a significant role here too. Pheromones, which are chemical signals we emit, can affect attraction and social bonding. Additionally, our compatibility is influenced by the MHC complex. This is a part of our immune system that also impacts how we perceive scent compatibility with others. When it comes to identification, we recognize individual scents or even group scents. Think about how we can tell a familiar person by their unique smell, or how certain groups or communities might share a common scent profile that helps us identify them. Now, an important point to remember is that olfaction, the sense of smell, is the only sense directly connected to the limbic system, which is our brain's emotional center. That's why a particular scent can instantly evoke vivid memories or strong emotions, sometimes even more powerfully than other senses. This connection explains the phenomenon often called the Proustian effect, the way a specific smell can trigger a flood of memories and feelings. It's a compelling reminder of how deeply our sense of smell is intertwined with our emotional life and memory, which adds a fascinating layer to understanding human behavior and experience. Now let's talk about artifacts and physical appearance, which are powerful tools for communicating who we are. Tattoos and piercings, for example, can signal group membership, rebellion, or artistic expression, depending on how they're used. Moving on to colors, dark shades like navy and black often symbolize power, authority, or seriousness. In contrast, brighter colors tend to convey energy, creativity, and approachability. Jewelry and accessories also send important social signals. Wearing a Rolex or a wedding ring, for instance, can instantly communicate status or relationship status. And then there's clothing. Uniforms are typically used to convey authority or belonging to a certain group, while casual wear tends to make us appear more approachable and relaxed. Overall, artifacts are the objects and physical features we use to express our identity, social status, and culture. They're subtle but impactful ways we communicate who we are without saying a word. Let's start by looking at how we can interact with verbal communication in different ways. When I say, "I'm fine," while frowning and slumping my shoulders, it sends a message that contradicts the words I'm saying. This highlights the importance of consistency between our words and our body language. Next, there's contradicting, which is when our nonverbal cues oppose what we're verbalizing. For example, banging the table to emphasize a specific word. This action can add emphasis or even create confusion, depending on the context. Then we have accenting, where we use positive body language, like smiling warmly while saying, "I'm glad to see you." This enhances the warmth of the message and helps build rapport. Complimenting is another key point. Nodding instead of saying, "Yes," can reinforce agreement naturally and subtly. It's a powerful way to communicate affirmation without words. Substituting involves replacing words with gestures, like pointing north while saying, "Go north." This can make communication clearer and more efficient, especially in situations where spoken language might be misunderstood. Finally, repeating is about reinforcing your message through gesture, repeating what you say with a gesture to emphasize your point. For example, nodding while saying, "Yes," can strengthen your affirmation. All of these techniques, contradicting, accenting, complimenting, substituting, and repeating, are valuable tools that deepen our communication and help us connect more effectively with others. They play a crucial role in making our interactions more expressive and aligned with our intentions. Let's talk about how cultural context really influences nonverbal communication. First, in warm climates, people tend to have closer interpersonal distances, meaning they are more comfortable standing closer to each other. Conversely, in cooler climates, personal space tends to be larger, and people prefer more distance when interacting. Now, when it comes to space, in some cultures like Latin America and Southern Europe, high contact is common. Think of kissing or hugging as a way to greet or show affection. On the other hand, in Northern Europe and many parts of Asia, low contact is the norm, so greetings might involve a simple bow or a handshake, which are more reserved gestures. Touch is another interesting aspect. For example, a thumbs up generally means good or okay in Western countries. But in the Middle East, that same gesture can be highly offensive, so it's important to be aware of these cultural differences. Gestures also vary significantly. In the USA and Europe, certain gestures like nodding or pointing are often seen as signs of confidence. However, in Japan and many Asian cultures, the same gestures might be interpreted as disrespectful or as a challenge. Finally, eye contact plays a crucial role. In many Western cultures, maintaining eye contact is a sign of confidence and engagement. But in some Asian cultures, too much eye contact can be seen as rude or confrontational. Understanding these nuances helps us communicate more effectively across different cultural contexts, reinforcing the overall theme that nonverbal cues are deeply rooted in cultural backgrounds. When it comes to mastering nonverbal cues, it's all about making your communication more effective and genuine. First, active listening isn't just about what you say, it's also about how you use your body. Nodding and maintaining eye contact, for example, show that you're engaged and truly present in the conversation. It helps build trust and encourages the other person to open up. Next, contextual observation is key. You need to read the room, pay attention to cultural or social norms, and adapt your body language accordingly. What's appropriate in one setting might not be in another, so being aware of these nuances is crucial for effective communication. Then there's congruence. This means your body language should match your words. If you're saying one thing but your posture or facial expressions suggest something else, it can create confusion or mistrust. Being congruent helps reinforce your message and builds credibility. Finally, self-awareness plays a vital role. You should regularly monitor your own posture, tone of voice, and facial expressions. This awareness allows you to stay authentic, confident, and approachable in your interactions. When all these elements come together, you create a powerful, trustworthy presence that enhances your overall communication skills. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate you taking the time to go through this presentation. Now, I'd like to open the floor for questions. Please feel free to ask anything that might have come up, or if you'd like me to clarify any part of the presentation. Remember, our goal was to explore the key concepts thoroughly and connect them to the overall theme, so your questions help deepen that understanding. Don't hesitate. Your questions are valuable and can lead to a richer discussion. So, who would like to start? Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I'd like to give a special thanks to everyone who helped bring this presentation together. My name is Vinod Goswami, and if you have any questions or want to discuss further, please feel free to reach out to me at goswamiv505@gmail.com or on my phone at +91 8,755,072,430. Once again, thank you all for your interest and engagement. I truly appreciate your time. Have a great day.